Welcome to Prepared for Parenthood, the podcast for hopeful, expectant, and new parents with little ones up to age 5, as well as the professionals who work with them. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Duger, a psychotherapist, author, educator, parent coach, and married mother of 2. On this show, we'll discuss everything from the most up-to-date practicals of best supporting your young children, to thriving in relationship as a family, to more surprising topics around the psychology and development of babies and children from conception through age 5. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. I'm thrilled to have you here today. Welcome back to Prepared for Parenthood. I'm so excited today to have our guest, Dr. Jay Warren. He is a prenatal and pediatric chiropractor at the CAP Wellness Center in San Diego. Dr. Jay has been the host of 2 podcasts, Healthy Births, Happy Babies, and The Dadhood Journey. And he's also created a number of courses for expectant and new parents. Dr. Jay is a parent himself, and he's passionate about helping new families get off to the best, healthiest start possible. So welcome, Dr. Jay. Really happy to have you here today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with dads. You have this podcast, you have courses, you're a dad yourself. What was the hardest thing for you becoming a new dad? And what do you see as the biggest challenges for new dads these days?
I came into parenthood a little different than a lot of the dads that I work with, that I had a lot of experience with babies. I'm in pediatrics. I adjust babies. I work with babies every day. So I was comfortable with holding babies and that they cry and things like that. But it was different when I became a dad. I was around 24 hours a day. It wasn't like a 15-minute appointment and I handed them back if they were fussy, So I think the biggest challenge I had was, especially in the beginning, just how tired I was and how relentless the job seemed. Like there wasn't any break. And that's not anything new for anybody that is a parent, and not different than a mom experiences. But I know that that part of never feeling like I'm ahead as a parent, that I'm always learning more, even though, as I just said, I had a lot of experience and I wasn't brand new to newborns, but I never felt like I was ahead. And I don't like not feeling ahead. I like being accomplished. I like being driven, having a plan, all that stuff. And parenthood definitely challenged me with that. And so that whole new experience and the overwhelm of it, I did what a lot of men do, I found working with new dads, which is, again, something that's common with women as well, is I retreated. I really kind of isolated and I holed up until I had it figured out and I felt better about myself. Then I could go back out in the world and be a parent with everyone. But it was a really lonely time. I remember I was with my partner, obviously, but that whole feeling of being around and with other parents and my parents and the other grandparents didn't happen nearly as much by our own fault, really. We hold up way too much. We should have asked for more help. And even more importantly, we should have accepted a lot of the help that was given to us. We just didn't. And so that's something that I see very common with the new dads that I see either in my office or work with different dads groups that I lead, that because things aren't going well or perceived as not going well, they don't want to share it. They don't want to show any chinks in the armor, right? And that just fosters more and more isolation. And I see that as a big challenge that a lot of men have becoming dads, is feeling like they're the only one going through this and that they're the only one having problems. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Any parent, once you start talking, they're like, oh yeah, I went through that. Oh yeah, I know what that's like. Oh, this will help. And then you get the support you need if you open up.
And about how long did it take for you to kind of come out of the hibernation space?
Well,
and out
Sunita's
into the world?
12, so probably about 11 years. No, just kidding. It changed for me at 3 months. I know 6 months was another big milestone, but I would say in full earnest, like it was the year mark that I felt more and more like myself, or I could be myself. Not that those listeners that are like only 3 months in are like, oh my God, I got 9 more months to go. It was just all hands are on deck in that first period, right? And necessarily so. I was a first-time parent. Yes, I had experience, but a first-time parent. So was my partner. I had a kid later in life. I was 41 when Nico was born, and I was fully just super excited to be a dad. And so I didn't do a bunch of other things because I was just super excited to be his dad and see what he did and play and all that kind of stuff. But the first 3 months was absolutely just so tiring and hard. And Nico is, from the babies I work with, an easy kid. It was a typical don't sleep all that much and then waking and feeding and all that stuff. But there wasn't medical problems or sleep issues or things like that. But the 3 month mark, he was sleeping a lot better. And so that meant that I was sleeping a lot better and she was too. And so we felt like there was a light at the end of the tunnel that we were not going to feel tired for the rest of our lives. And then 6 months definitely was a big change when he was more interactive and doing things. And we would actually go out and play at parks and things like that.
And does it feel like it's different now for new dads, new parents than it was 50 years ago?
I think there's a double-edged sword with today as far as internet and social media. I think it can be a great resource to get more information, and this whole new budding parent life that's going to have AI asking questions as kind of like a nanny. Who knows what that's going to be? But there's so much comparison. I find dads getting overwhelmed with too much information, that they're just, oh, well, this person says this, and this one said to put them to sleep at this time, and this one said don't do that. And you get analysis paralysis. There's just too much information, which some of the moms that I work with postpartum deal with that as well. I find though the moms, a lot more of the comparison of like, well, this woman's doing fine at 2 months postpartum and doing jumping jacks, and I can't even get a shower in, right? And that makes them feel like they're not as successful. They're not doing a good job at parenting. And so they want to isolate. Whereas the dads being so overwhelmed with too much information may be different than 50 years ago, because 50 years ago, you basically had your neighbors or somebody to call, or maybe a doctor's visit every couple of months to ask. And then what my mom says to me is like, I don't know what we did. I think we just figured it out, I guess. That's the wisdom of a grandparent that, oh, yeah, it was all fine. When you're in the trenches of it, that's not a good answer, but it's reassuring to know, okay, I'm still alive. But I think today, there's so much more access to seemingly good information, but then with everything in our world right now, with what's online, it's hard to know what's good, what's not, what's real, what's not. And that is an analysis paralysis difference that I see dads going through, of just trying to figure it out, which is great. And in a man's mind, or trying to solve the problem. But if there's many different answers to a problem, and it's like, well, there's so many answers because every baby is different and every family is different. Getting to the surrender part of that, of let's just try and do the best we can with the information we have and try this out. And if it works, great. And then when it changes, we change with it. But I also do think culturally, we're way more isolated as a culture in this country, at least. I don't know what it's like in other countries. There's just not friend sets in the same ways that it used to be. I just last weekend had dinner with the Suttons. The Suttons are my second parents. They lived on the same block as me. Their son, Doug, was my best friend growing up. And my mom and Sharon met when we were 6 months old. And we've been friends since 6 months old. Now, my son doesn't have friends that he's known since 6 months old. Like, we've moved around and things are different in the neighborhoods. And that's sad because I grew up with that and I wanted that for my son. I see that as a challenge, one for families, period, but for men as well, not having other dads to bounce ideas off of and commiserate or get support from. And that's why I've started leading more dads groups once a month with newborn dads and once a month with school age dads. We get together as dads to talk about parenthood, not to commiserate and complain. The guys that show up want to be really good dads, and we talk about different things. And it's that feeling of tribe that we're missing. And I see that as a big challenge.
I want to loop back to the information overload piece just a little bit, because I'm often sharing with clients. Most of my clients tend to be women who are expectant or new moms. And I'm sharing with them often, there's part of you that knows how to be a good parent, right? There's part of
Yes.
you that intuits, how do I deal with this situation, regardless of having 500 different answers that you can find on the internet. But my question is, because I think arguably men are more involved now in parenting than they were, say, 50 years ago. It's a generalization.
I read a
So,
paper just a little while ago that we spent 3 times more time with a baby as an active caregiver in the first year than even 20 years ago. So for sure, you're spot on.
so given that that seems to be the case for most people, and I'm sure there are variables at either end, is it fair to assume that men could lean into their intuition around that? Or do you feel like maybe that is just less accessible for them because they haven't been involved on that level in parenting quite as much, especially with little ones, as they are now?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I talk about there's maternal intuition, but there's paternal intuition also. Just you as a human being caring for a child, it's wired in us. We wouldn't be here on the planet at this stage if we didn't evolutionarily have cues to be able to tap into. And so I absolutely think that men can access an intuition of, does this feel right or not feel right, and value the feeling you have of whether this is going to go well or not, enough to try it out to see what results it gets, rather than going to the internet or going to AI or going to some outside source. I think that's something that I like say in our wellness center here, that we teach birth classes and things, always talking about that intuition, mama's intuition of, does your body need to be in a different position for birthing? It doesn't mean it's in a book. It just means like you want to shift your pelvis this way. And it might be exactly the combination of the baby and you in sync that will facilitate that birth and the pelvis to open up that much more. Well, dads can do the same thing of just, I feel my baby needs this right now just to cuddle, or we need to get outside and let's just move around, or something's not wrong here. It's just difficult. You have a crying baby all day long. Our 911 brain gets alerted into thinking, all right, something's wrong. I need to go to the hospital. I need to call the pediatrician, instead of, all right, we're having a fussy day. How can I slow myself down and talk about bioregulating each other? If I calm myself down, will that calm the baby down? And we can sync up in that way. I absolutely think that's accessible. And the only reason why we would even talk about it being accessible is if it's present, if it's there. It is there. We just got to slow our minds down and slow ourselves down to be able to listen and trust that just as much as an outside source.
And the men who come into your new dads groups, for example, how do they do generally in terms of trusting themselves around that piece? Is it like a new muscle that needs to be exercised, or does it feel like it just comes naturally to them?
Oh no, a lot of the new dads, when they come in, they don't even know they have the muscle, let alone like they're trying to train it up. It is all about trying to get answers from sources, either me as a facilitator and as a healthcare provider in the biz, or what book is it, what program, what sleep training do we need to do? Like, it is all an answer that's going to pop up in their Instagram feed that's going to be the one, or the book that the neighbor gives, or the one thing, right? It's after an information fatigue that happens of like, oh my God, we've tried everything and nothing's working. Then the slowdown is like, maybe this phrase, nothing's working, is meaning it didn't fix it to make it go away. But instead asking the question, what have you done that's helped, made it just a little bit better, and then focus on that as an answer. That's more about a feeling of things. So like, well, that seemed to go better, so let's try more of that, rather than the baby slept for 3 hours, but they're not sleeping through the night. It's like, well, if the baby's only been sleeping for 30 minutes, like a 3 hours a win. Whatever you just do that over and over again until it doesn't work anymore. So I do believe it is something that only kicks in when that part of your brain that's trying to find the right answer gets stomped on enough that it isn't working, that then they finally said, all right, how do I build the intuition muscle.
So, what do you think is most helpful for men and partners to help support their partner who is pregnant, who is birthing, who is postpartum?
With the partner, and this is your work, is getting in communication and talking it through. I mean, we met years ago through you publishing your book. And to this day, your book is part of our recommendations in our birth classes every single month. I don't teach the birth classes. I talk to the dads, but our instructor talks about your book as like a template to like, let's get in conversation about these things. So expectations can be talked about and an agreement can be made, because that's, as you know, this is your work. It's mismatched expectations that causes a lot of strife of who's doing what, what's good, what's not. But most couples, most brand new parents, first time parents don't even know what to ask. They don't even know what to talk about. Right. So like your book is a super help to them because it gives 55 different prompts. Like, what about this? What about that? And then for the guys, I find what helps them is skills training. So yes, I just said there's too much information out there, but if you've never held a baby before, if you've never changed a diaper before, you need to learn those skills. One, you're going to get in the trenches. You're going to have to figure out how to do a diaper, right? I changed one diaper before my son was born, and I got plenty of practice as soon as he came around. But I find with the men, they'll feel confident as a caregiver if they feel competent. And the way they feel competent is having skills. And it's not just one set of skills, it's having a bunch of different tools in their bag that they feel like, all right, I got this. I'm going to figure it out. It's a problem solving type of thing. So a lot of focus in prenatal care is on mom necessarily, and understandably, because you're growing the baby and you're going to be birthing and you're going to be breastfeeding and doing a lot of the newborn care. But in the same way we talk about with breastfeeding for moms, like, yes, it's the most natural thing in the world to breastfeed, but it's a learned skill for mom and for baby, right? So it's very common for it to be difficult in the first couple of weeks. And if you think it's supposed to just happen right away and it's not, that there's an emergency and it's wrong, then there can be a lot more anxiety brought to that situation. So the same is going to be true for a dad learning different skills, like how to soothe the baby, let alone changing diapers and putting a onesie on. I remember like changing my son's clothes in the middle of the night. And I'm like, I think I'm going to break his arm because he won't let me do it. Right. But as you get more experience, like, you know, it's going to be fine. But until you have that experience, you need to bring a certain skill set there. And I think the thing that makes dads feeling much more confident and connected with their baby is being able to soothe their baby, being confident that if they're crying, they can do something to help. And there's tons of information on there how to do that, whether it's like the 5S's, happiest baby on the block, Hamilton Hold, all these different things that can be curated and put together. Like, all right, I got a bunch of different ways of doing that. But those are things that I would love for our new parents to learn before the baby shows up, so that you're going into that situation with skills and with confidence rather than finding themselves in the trenches and behind. It's just like with the pregnancy on a first-time parent, so much is around pregnancy and the birth. And a lot of them don't even take newborn care classes or breastfeeding classes. And then it's like, well, once the baby comes, we'll figure those things out. Well, that's a really hard time to do it because mom, you're recovering from birth, you're recovering from the pregnancy, and trying to figure all those things out while you're sleep deprived is not a great time to do all of that. So the more you can get beforehand, the better.
Yeah. And again, probably leads to information overload, right?
And the information overload in a sleep deprived brain, like, you can't assimilate any of this stuff. You're just clicking on things that says like, it solved my baby's problem. You're like, I'll buy that at 2 a.m.
I have a personal question, if that's okay.
Of course.
So you have a son who's a preteen, right? And he may at some point in his life choose to be a dad. Are you able to bring any of this information to him yet, or is it mostly just by example?
Yeah, so it's definitely by example. And now as a preteen, it's always been really important to me, but coming to agreements around bedtime, screen time, homework, eating, all those kind of things, cleaning your room is super important so that it becomes less of a discipline issue. It's more like, hey, dude, we agreed by this time, let's do it. And we've cultivated that over the years. So he's good at it. He's still a kid. And I still have to remind him to pick up his towel off the ground after he takes a shower. But that agreement and parenting of being engaged and involved is really important. But as far as the little baby stuff, we do kind of like a hybrid homeschool thing. And he comes with me to the office on Thursdays. He's doing homework in the next room and stuff, but he's seeing me with babies and seeing, oh, like dads can do that too, rather than just being the moms. But he has said like, oh, I would love to be a dad someday. And that warms my heart because I can't wait to be a grandpa. But I don't want to force it on him. If that's not your path, that's not your path. I would think he would be an amazing dad just because of the caring, nurturing kid that he is. And I love being a dad, and it's been an amazing path for me. But I also recognize that's for me. That was my path. If it's not for him, so be it. But he has seen enough around little kids and parenting and the like that he said, oh, I'd like to do that someday. Versus if he saw it differently, he'd be like, no, that's not for me.
We've been speaking today with Dr. Jay Warren. He's a prenatal and pediatric chiropractor. Dr. Jay, can you let people know how to find out more about you and how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. My website, it's drjwarren.com. You can find all the different things about chiropractic and the different courses and links to the podcasts that I've done. The Dadhood Journey, thedadhoodjourney.com is the other website that'll funnel into more of the dad stuff. But you can find it on my other website as well.
Thanks so much for being here today, Dr. Jay. It's great to see you and so nice to have you share your wisdom on this podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. I love the work you're doing. I'm happy to contribute.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to the Prepared for Parenthood podcast today. I hope you found this episode educational, informational, and conversational, and that you'll join me again for another episode soon. If you enjoyed listening to today's podcast, I'd very much appreciate if you would rate, review, and subscribe. If you're interested in more information related to today's podcast, or are looking for parent coaching or courses, you can find my information in the show notes or online at preparedforparenthood.com.